Let's talk about the basics of angles. So whenever we're drawing an angle, we basically have two rays. An array is what you can think of as a line that stops. So in this case, we have an initial side, and we'll try to highlight some of this terminology. We start with an initial side, and then you're going to rotate around until you end up at a terminal side. So in this case, we have R1 would be our initial side, that ray. An array is just a line that stops. And then it goes off to the right-hand side in a nice straight line. We've rotated around until we land and we stop at R2. In this case, we would refer to that as being the terminal side where we stop at, basically. Now, if you're rotating in a counterclockwise motion, we call that a positive angle. And that's going to be important as we go through these. If we rotate in a clockwise manner, such as this one, we're going to have a negative angle. The next thing to mention is when we have our initial side, we typically have that these two rays lined up so they align at the origin. The initial side is always going to go off to the right-hand side of the x-axis. So in the positive x direction along the x-axis, and then as we rotate, this terminal side can kind of land wherever. But if we rotate in the counterclockwise manner, it's going to be positive. If it was in the clockwise manner, it would be negative. Okay, the next thing is quadrantal angles. Quadrantal angles are where the angles land on the quadrant, basically, or on the x or y axis that separates the two quadrants. So we have 0 degrees, that'll be our first quadrantal angle. Just say you started heading off on the right-hand side with your initial side, out the x-axis in the positive direction, and then you didn't rotate up or down, you just left your terminal side the exact same place, that would be 0 degrees. Not very interesting. 90 degrees would be if you had your initial side going out the x-axis and you rotated 90 degrees. That would be a right angle. It would go straight up, up the y-axis here. So that's going to be 90 degrees. These are going to be key kind of angles to get down, but we're going to use them enough that you're going to get comfortable with 0, 90, 180, and 270. 180 is going halfway around. 270 is 3/4 of the way around, so that's going down here with the y-axis. And then 360 degrees to go all the way around and land. So the initial side and the terminal side both go the same exact direction out here to the right-hand side. That's going to be 360 degrees. All right, next, let's draw just a couple of these. As you'll see on these next ones, I've gone ahead and I've kind of sketched in 0, 90, 180, 270. So we're trying to sketch the angle of 30 degrees in standard position. So when we're trying to do this, what I'm going to do is start by having my initial side from the origin going off to the right-hand side. All right, and then we're going to rotate that in the positive direction, meaning counterclockwise. And since I know 90 degrees is straight up from here, I know that 30 degrees is basically split this into 3 pieces. So 1 here and 2 more. All right, it's not maybe exactly perfect how I've drawn it in here, but you'll do your best as far as imagining what just happened here. So we went from our initial side, the x-axis, we've rotated up 1/3 of the way to 90 degrees. So that's going to be what 30 degrees looks like. What's kind of sketched in here, going from the initial side out the x-axis, up 1/3 of the way to our 90 degrees. It's going to be this angle produced right here. A little bit more difficult one is going in the negative direction when we have negative 135 degrees. So you'll notice what I've done here is I've labeled our axes. Since we're going in the negative direction as negative 90 and negative 180, it's going to fall somewhere in between these two. But as we get sketching this, how I'd probably go ahead about this is going ahead and saying, well, I know it's going to be moving in the negative direction. It's going to go past 90 degrees. But exactly how far into this quadrant are we going to actually land? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I'm at negative 135, and I've taken away 90 degrees, or actually added 90 degrees. So that's going to leave negative 45 degrees. All right, so what I mean by negative 45 degrees is for each one of these quadrants, it's going to take 90 degrees to cover the entire quadrant. So to go around this entire quadrant is 90 degrees. 45 degrees is going to be exactly half of that. So I think if we draw an angle out somewhere in that range, it's going to look like it's about halfway in between the -90 and the -180. So I think if we draw our angle to right about there, that should be -135 degrees. All right, hope this helps out getting down some of the terminology. We're going to use this quite a bit. So on to coterminal angles and converting in between two different measures.